Namaskaram to all the people who have assembled there for the inauguration of this session that we are having. I'm sorry I cannot be with you, but I'm happy that I'm able to speak to you. I want to and be part of the inaugural session. I want to begin with sharing with you all my journey in history, because I think that might have some reach to you. I think it will reach you in some ways, because I believe that we are all products of history and we live in history. So actually, whether you formally study history or not, we are all part of history. And in my case, it was particularly acute, this sense, because I was born in 1941. I was born 6 years before independence. So I was 6 years old when the colonial state ended, its power ended, and we became a new nation state with all its hopes and aspirations for a free, secular, humane, equal society. So I carry that vision with me have carried that vision with me all my life. So I was only 6 when the flag went up. And I was also only 6 when Mahatma Gandhi was brutally assassinated for being a humane person. So I was born at a time when we were seeing the birth of a new nation, but we were also seeing the attacks upon the way in which we had thought of that new nation. But fortunately, that passed, that moment passed, and I grew up simply as an ordinary little girl. I used to cycle to school, and the school that I went to was in tents, and it was in an area which was surrounded by unknown monuments, because it was at the edge of the town. And so I actually grew up with a sense of history, of ancient monuments from very early times to later times and so on. So there was this acute sense of history all around me. And that happens when you live in Delhi, because Delhi is filled with monuments that have been built over the centuries. And there is a sense of history as you move around in the city. So this is something that I carried with me. And I think that as a consequence, I have absorbed a sort of feeling for history, whether I'm formally studying history or not. My best friend, partition also happened in 1947. My best friend in school had come across the border in a military truck, and she had brought with her experiences of the trauma that they went through as they came and settled on this side. So that sense of the history of the country and how it was disrupted, its sense of becoming a new nation was disrupted in some ways by the things that were happening around them. I grew up as an ordinary student with the usual, concerns of young people. My father was a government servant. We were a large family, so actually there wasn't much money, and choices that other people made in being able to go to the schools that they wanted, go to the colleges that they wanted, and all those were not available to us. One good thing that happened in my life was that my father, just a minute. So sorry for the disruption. So we are, although my father was a government servant and we were not poorly off, we were a large family. So the choices that we had for where you wanted to study, what kind of education you got, and so on, were restricted by financial difficulties, and which meant that I never studied history formally in a good college. I didn't even manage to, because it would have meant going out of the city that I was living in, which was at that time, which was Bangalore. Nevertheless, I think the only thing I wanted to be all my life was to be a historian, to study history, not to be a historian so much as study history. So it's and one good thing was that because of the peculiar history of my family, which was had a historical link to Palghat, where my parents belonged to, as people who had left there because there were no prospects and had come off to Delhi, but that link was there. And my father was very concerned that we should all get a good education, including the women, because he had grown up watching his own sisters being dependent on their brothers or their other kin and having to ask for money. So one thing that he was very supportive of was the fact that we should study, but he also believed that we should get jobs and we should live self-sufficient lives without being dependent on anybody. This is something that I learned early on. I think it's an important issue, and all women must be economically self-sufficient. That's very important for them, I believe, because that gives them choices which otherwise they won't have. As the years proceeded, the question of what I wanted to research on, having studied history, when I was to do my PhD exam, PhD enrollment, I naturally chose Buddhism. I chose the history of the Buddha, the social history of the Buddha, because for me, by then, he had become the essence of the possibilities of organizing a life with compassion and in an ethical way. And so this led me to research the Buddha's time, the choices that he had, the kind of society that he envisioned. And so, in a sense, the running theme in that search was to look for the broader everyday philosophies by which the Buddha wanted society to be organized. And I think they are very relevant for us even today. And therefore, I do believe that we can learn a great deal from the past. I don't believe that we should stick to everything that the past has given us, but there are very good things. There are moving things that have happened in our own history, and we should certainly draw inspiration from them. So that's one of the choices that I made, which was to study Buddhism. And I wrote my first book called The Social Dimensions of Early Buddhism because of this interest in the Buddha. You must all know already that the part of this was inspired by the fact that Ambedkar had chosen to convert to Buddhism. And for similar reasons that I think I was drawn to Buddhism, which was for the compassion and for the ethical way in which the Buddha believed that human beings should organize their lives. So that must have been a motivation, because I was 15 when Ambedkar converted to Buddhism in the great big public event at the Diksha Bhumi in Nagpur. So that also remained. It fed into my interest in Buddhism. It's therefore I studied Buddhism, and then I proceeded soon after that for my second piece of work to study another figure, because by then I was very interested in the history of women, and I began to explore the life and times of Pandita Ramabai. Now, Pandita Ramabai is someone that I think of very often these days, because we've been through the pandemic, and the history of illness and history of disease and the history of trying to create, again, be ethical and compassionate in a time where there's a lot of suffering and distress, is something that we are thinking about at the moment a lot. And I've been thinking of Pandita Ramabai a great deal. She began as an ordinary woman, but she moved on to do incredible things, and she wrote a lot. So among the things that I think people should read, and I'm sure these are available in some, they are available in English, but also perhaps they are available in Malayalam. These should be, I think, read, because she too had a vision of a equal, humane society in which widows, particularly whom she worked for, did not suffer. She actually did a lot of work at the end of the famine, during the famine, because she could see starvation and the consequences that starvation had on people. So I think that if you look at these histories, you can see that actually the search for a humane, compassionate, secular society has been a very strong element in the lives of people and the searches that they have made. And I believe that, we can learn from that, and we should actually think about that. I think it's all of this history that also turned me into a filmmaker. So I've made a lot of films on women and on basically around the lives of ordinary women, people who stood up again with their committed to building a new society, whatever it may be, and sometimes being jailed for their beliefs. So in a sense, I think the lives of ordinary women, which you may not read about in history that often, they have always been important as far as I'm concerned. And I do believe that they will have some relevance also to your lives, because essentially we are surrounded by different kinds of people, and we have to work and uncover their histories. And that itself is the challenge of being a historian and writing history. And I believe that everybody is interested in history, and I'm sure you are too. And I wish you all the best possible prospects as you study your history and learn to become compassionate and humane young women who resist injustice and try and create and build a new society in which all can achieve their potential and all can actually live a secular humanist existence, which I believe is the greatest challenge that we have before us today in a society otherwise driven by hatred, which is being stoked to some extent by people around. But that's something we must reject. And I think we must stand for values that actually we ended British rule for. So we should actually return to the moment of what our forefathers and foremothers fought for. And that's the society we should all create now. And I wish you all very well. And any way in which you can live your lives as ethical and sensitive human beings is something that I would wish for you. Wishing you all the very best.
Thank you, Prof. That was great. That was lovely. Thanks a lot. It'd be great, like at some point, if you could come down and meet them.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Or else, like, some because I'm sure they'll be reading your work and all of that, and it's really inspirational.
It's good.
And we are also, this is what, like, I mean, many of us are academic volunteers who work in different areas. So I mean, so the thing is, in Kerala there is a problem with higher education now in terms of quality, and also like social justice, communal harmony. These are not values that we are able to cultivate in the governmental sector all that much. So we were thinking, like, so we all have a little time to spend for this kind of a thing. It's a rural college. It's about 23 kilometers away from Calicut, and 10% of the students in the school and college and all of that are orphans and really poor people and all of that. This was the first, all-inclusive orphanage which didn't discriminate between orphans and the children of the rich and all that. So that was how I found it very inspiring. I thought I taught there for a while after my MA from Hyderabad. So I liked it. Then I thought I could do some voluntary work there. So
That's
I'm
lovely.
very glad. Yeah,
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you chose to do that, because it is meaningful. It is meaningful to interact with women in their everyday settings and their needs and desires. They wouldn't understand English though, no?
They would. Many of them, their classes they write their exams in English.
Oh, they write
their English might not be, their English might not be, sort of, there would be errors, but it's a very all Malayalam setup, but they're teaching, a lot of their teaching and a lot of their exam writing happens in English. So that's
and I didn't use high English, so
not at all. It was a story, so that was really inspiring. And also I was also thinking about those moments, I mean, I knew your work was in Buddhism, but it had something to do with Ambedkar's that I'm hearing for the first. So that's great. No,
it made there were all these old ladies who didn't understand what was happening, but the fact that he was rejecting Hinduism and then going to Buddhism did shake up society. And it was quite a striking phenomenon. And I always wondered, why did they get so agitated? Why did people get so agitated? I was 15 at that time.
Right.
So the idea that why are they so agitated at this, it's not a big deal, And I always looked at, when we lived in Bangalore for a little while, we lived in an area where there was a Mahabodhi society nearby. So I used to go to the Vihara and look at the library and so on. So there was this nice relationship that one had with this aspect of one's surroundings and one's past and so on. So the Buddhism therefore attracted me as the, because the kind of history that was taught, that we had to learn for ourselves for the exam, I didn't have money to go to study in Mysore.
Okay.
Because my father didn't have 90 rupees a month. It required 90 rupees a month, and my father's entire pension was 500 rupees. Okay. And we were 7 children. So, so I couldn't study, and there was no history in Bangalore. So I ended up doing a private MA. I enrolled as a student at Banaras University, and Banaras University just sent me the syllabus and a bookshop's name, and the rest was left to me. I was supposed to, work that out. So I'm a self-taught historian. So I would cycle to the libraries, and in those days it was interesting because you could cycle all around Bangalore and you collect your books, so sit in the library and read and so on. And in the end, and I was doing law at the same time. So I actually did two exams in same set of work. Then I catch a train, finish law exams, then catch a train and go to Banaras, and just to write the exam. So actually but in the end, everybody in the family would be writing notes for me and so on, so that because they were all pitching in when I did that massive amount of study. At that time I was studying 18 hours a week, a day, in order to cope with the course. So, but being self-taught was interesting because the magic of history never went away. The magic of the fact that there is all this that has happened in the past, at the whatever. So in a sense, I think that engagement with history has never gone. And I often say that I don't necessarily believe in the theory of karma, but if I'm born again, I want to be a woman. I want to be a historian. I still want to study history. I want to live in better times. I don't want to live in times like this. And the only thing I feel I would like, which I'm unable to do, is to be able to sing. Because a rich voice does, and music does something to me. So that's all I want. I don't want anything more. So, at the end of the day, that's the life I'm looking for.
Very sweet, very sweet. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So the
Okay.
edited version you sent to me.
I'll send to you. I'll send it to you tomorrow, and then we can.
Yeah, yeah. And all the best, and I hope everything
Thank
goes
you
on
so
well.
much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Please
so
come
much.
to Dayapura when you come to Kerala. We could bring you down or something when
We'll
things
find
are all
some way.
better.
We'll
At some
find some
point,
way.
it would be great.
We'll find some way. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm
Thank
glad you're doing this work. And
Thank
I do wish all these girls
Yeah.
a time in which they can, be find happiness for themselves, but also to be productively engaged with their society, in some way.
Actually, having taught here, I think the girls are and like Shine Bag and people like you and the senior feminists and the junior girls, they're coming together was the best thing that I've seen in last 10 years in Delhi. And they're the only ones who can. I was saying they're the only saviors. I mean, we men have lost it completely.
Yeah.
There's no way we can do anything.
Yeah.
We just have to bow out, but we just have to make sure that we don't say anything. We just
We don't
we are
obstruct.
silent.
We don't
Yeah.
obstruct.
Yeah. We are just silently. We just move out to the side. That's the only thing we can do to make anything better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
That was nice. That was really nice. I'm so glad. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.